then the other person is someone I don't talk to anymore because I almost had to get a restraining order against him.
What?
So, actually, maybe I should make that a story time later. Anyway, there's this dude who I dated for a week, and all of a sudden, he just like changed and was like really possessive and crazy.
The one you met at the Beverly Center.
Yeah. Okay, you guys, you asked for it. This is going to be a story time about the time I almost had to get a restraining order. Yep, you may have heard me allude to this story in my Sex and DMs reading video I did with Ryland. Enough of you wanted to hear this story, so I thought, why not? You might be wondering why I'm dressed like Elvira's cousin. And it's because, aside from being the restraining order story, this is also the story about the time I dated a vampire.
Wait a minute.
Let's dive in, shall we? First of all, this is a long-ass story, so I would recommend grabbing some chips, grabbing some pizza, grab some snacks, because you're gonna be sitting wherever you are for a long time. You guys stop listening! Oh, okay. We have to go, this goes back, this is like October. You guys, when was FOF? Okay, October. Okay, so this goes all the way back to October of 2017. Was just making my way through the Beverly Center parking lot. I was going to return a pair of Steve Madden shoes. These are details that aren't important. I was in the parking lot, I'm getting out of my car, and I feel this car pull up next to me. I look over and I'm like, that's a spaceship. This guy rolls down his window and he was like, hey, can I get your number? And I'm like, I don't know your ass. My instant reaction was like, yeah, he's cute, but he's not really my type. Like, he was wearing a button up and looked like he had his life together. So I was like, how about I take your number, which I always like to do, which I recommend you doing if you don't always want to give out your number because people could be crazy. And also, so in that case, you always have the control so that you could reach out to the person or call them if you want to. So I took his number and I noticed that there was a girl in the front seat, and I was like, well, that's kind of weird that he's asking for my number when he's sitting next to a girl. I was like, I leaned over and I was like, hey, like, are you okay with this? In case it was like a weird, like, sister-wife situation. I didn't really know. Not that that's weird. If you do that, more power to you, not judging. She was like, no, I'm his sister. And I was like, oh, okay, like, that's sweet. Like, whatever, he's just at the mall with his sister. I don't know. Fast forward, he goes away. I take his number. I'm in the Beverly Center, and who do I see? It's him walking around without his sister. And it was the most awkward hello I've ever seen in my life. Like, he lingered too long. You ever talk to somebody and they're just like, they stare at you a little too long, and it's not like an endearing or sexy kind of way. It's just in like a, I might eat your liver later kind of way. Literally like a month or two goes by. So I was going back to the Beverly Center because my shoes that I originally went there for hadn't come yet. So I was like, let me pick them up. So again, I'm in the parking lot. What pulls up next to me? That same spaceship. And I was like, what? And I just hear the voice being like, hey. And I'm like, no way, no way. And I turn, same dude. Again, with his sister in the front seat. And he was like, hey, you never called me. And I was like, yep, that is correct, I concur. He said some smooth pickup line, because I had told, this time I was like, oh, like, I have a boyfriend. I didn't have a boyfriend, but that's just always my go-to excuse, because that way nobody's feelings get hurt and you can just walk away easily without having to like feel like you turned down the person. So he was like, oh yeah, but does your boyfriend look as good as me? Or it was something better than that. Like, it was something smoother. I was finessed and I was like, that was cute. And I like guys who go out of their way, like, who are bold and confident and aren't afraid to like ask a girl out. Apparently, I think it's attractive for a guy to ask me out if he thinks I have a boyfriend. I have problems. So I was like, okay, I like it. So I gave him my number that time. Then I was really hesitant to do it, but I did it. So then I like kind of forgot about it. And then I was going to this event with my girl Jackie. And he texted me and he was like, hey, like, are you free tonight? And I was like, I don't know, I'm here at this event until like 8 p.m. And I was like, but I'll text you if I get out early, and then like maybe we can hang out. So he was like, cool. So I end up getting out of that event early, and I text him and I'm like, hey, right now it's like probably like 8:30-ish. And I'm like, hey, just got out of the event. I'll probably be home around like 9. And he was like, okay, perfect. He was like, let me sort some things out and I'll like get right back to you. And I was like, okay. Then literally no longer than I'd say 7 minutes tops. And I'm just picking 7 because that's my favorite number. Somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, okay? He gets back to me and he was like, okay, cool. I'll meet you at 9 at Chateau Marmont. I was like, okay. If you don't know, Chateau Marmont is like, it's a nice hotel. It's a nice restaurant. It's a little expensive. It's historical, like Marilyn Monroe and her friends stayed there. I don't know. So I go to Chateau Marmont and it was my first time being there. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was my first time there. So I was like so confused by the entrance. I was like, huh? You got, first of all, to even enter the premises, you have to check in, like give your name. So it's not like even like you're checking into the hotel. You're literally checking in with somebody in the driveway before you can even get through the door. So they were like, name please. And I'm like, oh, you can check. And I said his name, which I'm not gonna say in this video because I'm not trying to die. I gave the name and then I was like, oh, but it was like a last minute, I don't think there's a reservation. And then they're like, oh, no, go right ahead. And like, they said it as if like, oh yeah, him. Like it's a name that they've heard over and over again. So I was like, okay. So I walk into the restaurant and I go to the hosting stand and I'm like, I give his name and I'm like, hey, like, I don't think there's a reservation, but if there is, it'd be under this name. And they're like, oh yes, he was the first to check in. What, how? Like literally, he had like 5 minutes to get all of this sorted out. I didn't tell him until the last minute that I could even hang out. So I was like, what? So he gets there and like this time he like looks more my vibe. Like he was wearing a leather jacket and like I could see like a tattoo. You're bad. And we just honestly, you guys, have the best conversation. Like it was like one of the best dates I've ever been on as far as just like vibing with someone and like his jokes were actually funny. Anyway, long story short, and I gotta look at my notes. This story's so damn long, y'all. I got notes to make sure I cover everything in the story. So this is also how I found out how old dude was. Without showing him, in my mind, I was like, dude is no older than like 27, 28 at the oldest. Like I asked him, I was like, well, how old are you? And he said, 41. Oh shit! What? I was like, no, you're not. Like, you're fucking with me. Like, no, you're not. And he was like, no, I'm 41. And I was like, what? And like, even, like, he got all my references. I made SpongeBob references and he like finished the quote. I was like, there's no way you're 41. There's no way. And he was like, I just have good genetics and I work out a lot. And I'm like, no. I was like, there is not one wrinkle, crinkle, crease on your face. I'm like, how, what, why, what blood are you drinking? Do you see what I'm saying here? Vampire. So then the day was over and then I lifted there, even though it's like not that far from my place at all, but it's just easier not having to deal with parking. So we were walking out and he was like, let me walk you to your car. And I was like, oh, no, I took a lift. And he was like, oh, why didn't you tell me? I would have called it for you. And I was like, oh, no, like, don't even worry about it. Like, I'll just call it. And he was like, no, I only live like 5 minutes away. Let me call the lift so then it can just drop me off first and then we'll go on and drop you off. And I was like, oh, no, like, that's okay. Like, I can call it. Like, I'm really close. No big deal. And he was like, please, please, please. I insist. And so I was like, okay, because I was a genius at the time. So the lift comes and he tells the lift driver like how to get to his place. And if you don't know, like Chateau Marmont, it's like off of Sunset, but like kind of off to a hill. And so he was like, oh, make a left here. And if you make a left on Sunset in that direction, you're really going into some big ass houses, okay? Like really into the hills. And at this point, like I already got vibes that he had money because of course he's not gonna let me not know that on the first date. He was trying to impress me. He was one of those. Ow! He said that he was a writer in the industry. May I point out that I Googled this man, okay? I had his full name. I Googled him. Nothing on the internet, not a Facebook page, not a LinkedIn, not an Instagram, not a Twitter, not a MySpace, nothing. So I'm kind of like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like if you're a writer, like IMDb, anywhere, like there's nothing on the internet about you unless you go by a stage name or a pseudonym or something. Nothing. Couldn't find anything. So anyway, we pull up in front of this house that looks like Christian Grey himself moved in with his family. Like, try not to make it a big deal that I didn't care that he lived in a big house. I really didn't care, but I was like, damn! Oh, also, I forgot, while we were at Chateau Marmont, I was like thinking about it again. I was like putting it together. I was like, the age thing. And they said he was the first to check in. Think about it. That place is old as so it's like the first to check in, meaning that you probably checked in like 1920, 1910. Why you still alive and why you still 41, bruh, huh? By the way, I have some garlic right here. Make sure it can focus. Focus. Garlic, okay? Because I'm not taking any chances. Anyway, now fast forward to like a few days later, and he texted me and he was like, let's get lunch. So I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I can like escape for an hour, whatever. He picks me up and I get into this nice car, which I won't say what it is just because I want to keep this story like somewhat discreet. I get in the car and I'm like, well, where are we going? And he was like, you'll see. And I was like, okay, Christian Grey. And then we pull into Barney's. Like, they were like, what's up, man? Like, I haven't seen you in so long, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, so good to see you. Nah, 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 blah, blah. And we go up to, they have a restaurant. So we go to the restaurant and as soon as the door opened, they're like, oh my God, like, it's so good to see you. It's been so long, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, hi, like, yeah, we don't have a reservation, but I want to see if so-and-so is here. And so I guess so-and-so is like a waiter that he knows really well. I don't know. And so he finds him and the waiter's like, oh my God, so good to see you, blah, blah, blah. And he looks at me like, he's like, oh, you're his latest one. Like, he's like, oh, hi, sweet, like, so beautiful, blah, 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 whatever. Like his normal spiel that he gives this guy's like, arm candy, okay? And then the guy's like, oh, like, I don't think there's any room in my section, but we'll make sure you guys get a great table out on the balcony so you can like look out, blah, blah, blah. And then immediately the vampire is like, because where the balcony was, it's like you look out and you could see the Hollywood Hills. And he was like, I just didn't want to sit on the balcony because it's so annoying having a view of my house. Ew. Then like halfway through lunch, people start to come over. Like the waiters are coming over, the manager came over and he was like, just want to make sure everything's going well, like blah, blah, blah. You're one of our best clients. And I'm just like, wow, he's taking a lot of girls here. And then things took a turn. It got a little weird. So again, I'm a talker, right? So I'm talking to the waiters and I'm like, oh, like, thank you. Just like not out of the norm. Just when they brought something over, I acknowledged it and I'm like, oh, like, thank you so much, man. Like, whatever. And the vampire turns to me and he's like, well, you're friendly. And I'm like, yeah, what do you mean? He was like, did you talk to everybody? You say hi to everybody? And I was like, yeah, I do. And he was like, okay, whatever. So then I like took note of that and I was like, that's kind of weird. And then I was explaining to him that I was going to go visit my friends in New York. And he was like, a guy friend? And I was like, no, actually there's like two of my girlfriends from high school. And he was like, oh, okay. Just making sure that you're not like flying to New York to like see some other guy. Mind you, I'd known this dude for like 3 days at this point, okay? This was our second date. So lunch concludes and the bill comes and I'm like, right now, I think he's getting this vibe that I'm like younger than him and I'm like want to be his little trophy. And I'm like, no. Let's have a little bit of a power shift. You guys, as soon as that check hit the table, I snatched it and I was like, my treat. Thank God we only got like fries and salad because fuck. And I was like, I got it. Just because I just didn't want him to think that I was like that girl, you know, because I'm so not. I'm like, I can take care of myself, thank you. But I'm real like, can I get a sugar daddy? So fast forward, we get back into the car and again, with like him just being like a douchey, showy, just kind of like asshole. He's like, you know, like those guys who make that noise with their car. It just screams, I have a small dick. And I'm like, oh, okay, like, thank you, I had a great time. I was like, I'll see you Sunday, because we had plans to hang out on Sunday. And he goes, black dress. And I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean black dress? He was like, black dress. Do you have one? And I was like, yeah. I was like, why? And he was like, on Sunday, wear a black dress. I like black dresses. And I was just looking around to figure out who the f he was talking to. And he goes, black dress. And I'm like, yeah, I have a black dress, but maybe I'll wear orange, motherfucker. Like, what the f? And so whatever. So I get out of the car and I was like, just so turned off by that. I'm like, who the are you? I gotta stop cussing. I'm sorry. There's gonna be so many hee-hees. I'm like, who have you been dating to like, who's okay with you like dressing them like a Barbie doll? Like what? Like who? When? No. So then Sunday comes, okay? And on this Sunday, I had plans to go to this event that both of my roommates were in. But I was like, but I'll text you when it's over so we can hang out. So then fast forward. And so I texted and I was like, ugh, longest award show ever. And so he read that and he thought that that meant that it was still going on. But I was trying to signify that it was over. So I said something like longest award show ever. And then he was like, oh, like yikes or whatever. And I realized that was like a miscommunication on my end. I should have been like, oh, like, yay, it's over, like whatever. But that's how I said it. And so I can see how he interpreted that as it's still going on. It was over. Anyway, then when he didn't respond further to me saying longest award show ever, I was like, oh, maybe he just got busy and so we're not gonna hang out, like whatever. I wasn't tripping because I'm like, don't really, when people cancel plans, it's kind of a good thing. And now it's like around 9 p.m. And so he texted me and he was like, hey, are you still at that event? And I was like, oh no, I was like, sorry, I thought I made that clear, like it was over. And now I'm just like hanging out with my friend celebrating because she won. And he goes, oh. And I'm like, uh-oh. And he was like, okay, well, have fun with your friend. And I was like, oh, he's mad. Okay, great. So me trying to be a people pleaser and not liking conflict, I was like, let me just send him something to appease the situation. And this is where this ensemble comes in. So, remember how he was like black dress? Now, mind you, this is the dress that I wore to the event. But mind you, I bought the dress before he said the whole black dress thing. So never in my right mind would I wear it because he told me to wear it. No, it was a coincidence. But to appease the situation, I took a picture of me in the dress and I sent it to him and I said something like, you may or may not have inspired this look tonight. And you know what he said? It's too long and I hate flowers. And I was just so shook. I was so taken aback because I was like, oh my God. I was like, I don't think anybody has ever, or at least a guy that I was dating has ever said just something so out of pocket like that. And I just didn't respond. I was just like, the f, like, you're not gonna treat me like that. The next day he texts me and he was like, hey, wanna get lunch? And I'm like, did we have the same text exchange? Because, excuse me? Then I text him back and I'm like, hey, like, maybe you just didn't catch it, but I was like, I was kind of offended by what you said. And then he was like, oh my God. He was like, what did I say? And I was like, you call my dress ugly? And he was like, oh. He was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah. I was like, it was kind of, I was like, it was kind of, I just straight up, I was like, it was kind of offensive. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I never meant to offend you. I would never do something like that. And then I should have just left it alone, you guys, but my ego got to me and I just had to say, I was like, I think you're used to a certain type of woman that you can control. And I shouldn't have said that. I didn't need to say that, but I said it. And it just was like a complete 180. And he was like, excuse me? He was like, now you're calling me controlling? Like, how dare you? Like, that's so offensive. Basically just trying to like flip and like make himself the victim. And I was like, okay. Like, I just started putting all the pieces together. I was like, between you being controlling, trying to tell me what to wear, you being upset that I'm talking to waiters, you being upset that I'm visiting a friend in New York who could potentially be a guy who's not you after knowing you for a week at this point, I was like, he's crazy. So I stopped responding and then he like continues to text me. Like the next day he'd be like, good morning, and then he would be like, you want to get lunch? Good. Like, again, like as the days progressed, like he would like say this and I wouldn't respond. And then so finally a day came where I was kind of like, okay, like maybe he's just not getting the hint. And so he texted me one day again and he was like, hey, you want to get lunch? And I was like, hey, I was like no hard feelings or anything. I just don't think that this is gonna work out. And I didn't say the whole it's me not you thing, but basically. And he was like, like, seriously, like, are you, and I was like, yeah, I'm like, nah. So then he calls me, and then I didn't answer, and I was like, what is not clear? And then so then I texted him again. I was like, in case we weren't clear, like, I don't want to see you again, like, please stop contacting me, basically. And it just, like, he flipped, and he was like, what? And then he proceeded, you guys, to call me, and I kid you not, 25 times in a row. And mind you, if you've ever had someone call your phone 25 times in a row, you can't use it, because every time that the caller pops up, your phone's out of you. Like, it's all you can do is either answer or decline. But 25 times in a loop. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is crazy. I was like, he's 41 years old acting like this, okay? So I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I don't know what to do. So then I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, I don't know what to do. I was like, this dude won't stop calling me. I've never dealt with this situation. Like, what do I do? So she was like, I got you. And if you guys have seen the wedding video, you know that my mom and I are like, we here. So she was like, this is what you do. She said, tell him that your mom thinks that he's too old for you, and that she wants you to stop contacting. She wants you to stop, you know what I mean? So then I tell him that, and he says, let me talk to her. And I was like, what? So I text her that, and she's like, oh, hell no. She was like, tell him that your mom has friends in law enforcement, and that if he doesn't stop calling, she's gonna, like, I'm gonna call the police. And so then he texts me back, you don't know who you're dealing with. And I was like, at that point, I was so freaked out. I was like, oh my God. And then I started putting everything together. I was like, the first date we went on, he called a Lyft that took him home first and then dropped me off, because you know how you can like insert the location into Lyft and you can like change it, which means that if he went back into his Lyft app, he knows where my ass lives. Then I started freaking out, you guys, and I honestly was like, what the fuck am I gonna do? And it didn't stop with the calls. After that, he continued to text me, and he was like, you don't know who you're dealing with. And then, you guys, it was like this weird, like, switch of personality thing where he said, catch me outside, how about that? And just like that. And then he said, stop texting me. He was like, leave me alone. And I'm like, what the f? I'm like, are you having a conversation with yourself? Like, it was some like, just psycho shit, okay? So then I don't respond, and then it's just like a chain of him talking to himself. And then, you guys, he sends me the creepiest combination of emojis I've ever seen in my life. It wasn't just a set face that they have. He made a face with the emojis. He typed like the eyeball, hit return, made a nose, hit return again, and then typed the mouth. So it looked like just like a face. Like, ooh, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It looked like a face just looking at me. And you know what it reminded me of? If you've ever read or seen the movie The Great Gatsby, there's a part where the billboard with the eyeglasses, and it's like a metaphor for like he's watching you. Yeah, he texted me that, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna see 25. Then I freaked out, and I basically had my mom and my close friends and my roommates all turn on that Find Friends app. I'm like, and I told my mom, I was like, check this app 3 times a day. I'm gonna tell you where I'm going, and if it doesn't align with what I tell you, or if you see it going into the Hollywood Hills, I was kidnapped and you need to call the police if you want a child. And it's like funny now, but at the time it really wasn't funny. Like, I was honestly freaked out, and I didn't want to, like, I was supposed to go out that night. I didn't go out because I'm like, I have a parking garage at my apartment, and I was like, I don't want to get home late. And he said, like, whatever. So I started freaking out, and then literally for like the next few days, I was just on edge. I'm like, I don't know where he's gonna pop up. Like, I don't know. Like, he was just like very like the kind of vibe of like, if I can't have you, no one can. So I was just like, I'm gonna die. I'm like, oh my God, what the crap am I gonna do? At that point, my mom was like, just block his number. And that was probably the logical thing to do, but I was like, I don't want to block his number in case I need to get a restraining order against this dude because he won't stop calling me. She's like, okay, like, just so I can have record of all of the craziness. And I screenshotted all the text messages and all that. I still have that. And so he did continue to call for like the next like few days, but like it went from calling like 7 times a day to 5 times a day to 2 times a day into like not at all. So I was like, okay, like I don't need to get a restraining order because that would just piss him off more. Like, I just didn't want to make this situation any more worse, like severe than it already was. So not to say that if you're in a situation where you really need to get a restraining order, get a restraining order. Don't be afraid to. My situation, I just don't think it was as serious as I dreamt it up in my head to be. So anyway, we come to present day now. Okay, so he ended up leaving me alone. He stopped calling me, like it was totally fine. I felt safe again. So now it's present day. There's this place, like it's like a structure of things. I don't know how you explain it. Anyway, they have a Body Factory, they have a Trader Joe's, and they have a Malibu Fish Grill, which are 3 places that I go to all the time. It's like a one-stop shop for like all those things. Usually when you pull into P1, which is the top level of the parking garage, because everywhere in LA has a parking garage, because I can't just like have normal parking that you don't have to pay for. Anyway, so I go into P1, and usually there's no parking on that level. You always have to go to P2 or P3, but I was like, let me just try it. You never know. So I pull into P1, and then right next to the elevators is a parking spot, and it's like one of those parking spots where it's not like an open parking lot. There's only room for like 2 cars, and any other time I would, without even thinking about it, take that parking spot, because I'm like, what the f, P1, there's never any parking and it's right next to the elevator. Hell yeah. But for some reason I was like, I can't park, I'm not gonna park there. So I like kept going around, and then of course there were no parking spots because it was P1, and then I pulled back out and I was like, Drew, just park there. Like, it's not that big of a deal, just park there. So I parked there, and then it still felt weird. Like, and also there was like a really nice car parked right next to the spot, and I was like, well, I was just trying to be really careful pulling into the parking spot when I would be careful regardless of what kind of car it was. But like, you know, it's like a nice car, you're like, ah, fuck my insurance, you know what I mean? Then I got out of the car and I walked toward the elevator, and then even still I turned back around and I was like, can I park here? Like, I was looking around, like making sure there wasn't a sign. I'm like, Drew, just go inside Body Factory, like you can park here. I was going to Malibu Fish Grill, and I picked up my food, and I was gonna call my mom, but in the parking structure, there's not, you don't have service, so your calls will drop. So I'm like, let me just call her now, and I'll just stay up here to like talk to her on the phone. So I call my mom, and I'm just like catching her up on my week. So I'm like turning around like towards to face the Trader Joe's, and I see this girl, and I'm like, oh my God, like her jacket's so cute. Like, I really like her outfit. And then next to her is a guy pushing a shopping cart. Who is that guy? The vampire. It was like slow motion. I was like, I sprinted, not sprinted, fast walk, because I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want him to see me. I'm pretty sure he did not see me because I didn't make eye contact with him. I just saw this side of his face, and I was like, oh hell no. So I walked so fast in the other way just to get away from the situation. And mind you, this whole time I'm on the phone with my mom, and I'm like, oh my God, 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 oh my God. And she's like, what? I'm like, I'll tell you in a minute. Oh my God. So I literally like go, there's like a furniture store, and I keep walking all the way, not even to the furniture store, through the furniture store, and all the way to the damn back. And I finally tell my mom, I'm like, oh my God, I just saw the vampire. And she was like, what? And mind you guys, the girl whose outfit I liked, I'm pretty sure he picked it out because they were matching, and I was like, oh no, she drank the Kool-Aid. I was like, she was okay with him picking out her clothes, especially if they were grocery shopping together. I'm like, you're far into this, girl. Like, you were okay with this lifestyle of being his trophy. And I was like, I just wanted to yell like, get out. Like, it seemed like a get out situation. I'm like, girl, do you not know? But clearly she was already in. She already had the, you know, lobotomy, so whatever. And also she was a clone of me. Okay, so anyway, so then it all started to come together for me in my head, and I was like, oh my God, the nice car that I was parked next to in the parking lot was his car. And then I just freaked out, because I'm like, that explains why I had that weird ass feeling when I first pulled into the parking lot. And I was like, am I psychic? Because why else? Like, why would I have that feeling that I can't park there? Like, there was no sign that I couldn't park there. It was perfectly fine that I parked there. But I think the universe was literally just like trying to tell me, you're parked next to the vampire, okay? And that's exactly what it was. And I was on the phone with my mom, and I was like, oh my God, Mom. I was like, had you not been on the phone with me, I would have walked to that elevator and to my car, and we probably would have been at my car at the same time. I don't know how to explain that. I don't know what that is. Thank you, universe. Thank you, guardian angels. I don't know who it was. They saved me in that situation. I don't know what would have happened if he probably wouldn't have done anything, honestly, because he was like with someone else, but like, happy I didn't have to find out. So anyway, oh my God, this is long. So, that's what happened. Everything turned out fine. Obviously, I'm alive because you guys are watching this right now. But that's the story of me dating a vampire and also not having to get a restraining order. So what is I don't know what I tried to like leave you guys with like a message of like a lesson to learn at the end. I guess don't tell people where you live or where you work within like the first week of knowing them. Wait some time to make sure they're not crazy on a first date. I know everyone thinks it's cute for a guy to pick you up at your house and then take you to the date. You don't know his ass, so you meet him there, and then once you realize that he's not crazy after a few times, then he can pick you up, okay? And just watch your backs, okay? And don't date vampires. He didn't sparkle, by the way. Anyway, if you guys want more story times, I have a Rolodex full of them, so. And I know this isn't the guy story that Ryland had previously mentioned. I don't think I'm ever gonna do that one because it's just too much involved. But if you want to hear any other ones, let me know. Lots more to come for you guys. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys next time, okay?